Yeah, welcome to Academy of Tone 127. Today we have echoes, tape echoes, and even more echoes. Sorry for being a bit late, but I had a better setting, but while I had it running, the tape was wearing out and the sound got worse. So that's another reality about tape echoes. They actually wear out in like half an hour. So I did a sound check and it sounded pretty good. And then shortly before we started this episode, I checked it and said, oh, I can't do this. So I had to switch and go for a modern replica of what this Watkins Copycat should have been for the first song. Anyway, so this was planned to be, and this is the Strymon Volante became the solution last minute. Okay, anyway, let's talk a little bit about things here, echo in general, and maybe one more thing. We had a birthday, Stevie Ray Vaughan, on the 3rd, which is like 2 days ago. And Stevie Ray Vaughan, great guitar player, Texas blues, he made the blues great again. I first heard about him on this David Bowie album, Let's Dance. And then, of course, there was all these solo records that he came out with, Texas Flood and so on. And yeah, so that was the birthday boy of this week. Anyway, back to the echoes. I'm pretty sure that you all tried some echo, but there's so many different styles of echoes, and there are so many different aspects of the echoes that are important to get certain characters. I'd like to start with a little history so we all know where this is coming from. In the 1940s, the music was experimenting with artificial space, something like fake space, something that wasn't just the room that the mic was placed in. So the first machines to record, which were reel-to-reel tape machines, something like this here, reel-to-reel, it means in this case we have a motor here, and this is actually circling. I show you what. This was the Volante, and this is this fellow here. So, what we are actually hearing here is the guitar being recorded onto the tape and then kind of played back with, in this case, 3 heads. So there's the first head, which is this one. Come on, switch it on, it's so noisy. And I have some feedback coming on here. Let's get the sustain out. So this is this. So this is head number 2. And this is head number 3. This is head number 3 and number 2. And this is head number 1, 2, and 3. So this is what we are getting from a tape delay. It sounds really, really dirty. It sounded a bit better half an hour ago, but somehow it lost the quality very, very fast. And I had to repair the whole thing. This is why we were so late. The motor didn't work, so I had to put in the new fuse. Then I had to clean the heads because, you know, the whole thing was kind of super dirty. Some alcohol to get the heads cleaned and stuff like that. And then it worked for like 15 minutes, and that was the glory moment of this Watkins Copycat. But anyway, back recording. So he used several tracks that he was adding and layering guitar and vocal tracks on. So Les Paul, back in those days, in the 50s, he was doing crazy stuff, kind of very, very innovative things. And there was an effect that became very, very popular, the so-called slapback delay, which is just like one of those short repeats here. And let me see the space echo, which is on the 8. That's, what is this? I just go for program number 1, which is 1 head here. Okay, bypass. This is the space echo. Yeah, and that's that brilliant effect. Yeah, so basically this is just one single head, and there is a little feedback on it. The purists have it dry. You know, it's just one. What's also very important is the preamp. This Roland Space Echo is a transistor echo, but it already colors the tone even when there's not no delay being in use. So bypass, which means guitar straight into the amp 1 with some reverb. Now the space echo. Maybe you can hear that the, wait a minute, let's get the echo volume down. This is just a preamp. So bypass, kind of bright. Now I send the signal through the space echo, and the high end is gone. So that's already part of the space echo sound. This kind of preamp colors the tone. So, and then I can bring in the echo volume to hear the repeats. Yeah, a very typical sound. And this is the so-called slapback sound. I put a little feedback on it, so you can see that the one repeat is being repeated again. And this is called here intensity. Today we would call it feedback. Yeah, this repeat rate is actually the speed of the motor. So the tape is running in circles, and when I increase the repeat rate, I have a faster speed on the motor, which moves the tape faster from the record head to the playback head, and this makes the time shorter. And of course, since there's a certain pitch that is on the tape with some feedback, I can have that note raised in pitch when I speed up the motor. That's one of those, well, typical UFO sounds. Anyway, so this was filtering the tape sound. I have some control for treble and bass here to color the sound of the repeats. This is all stuff that came later. In the early days, you know, they were happy to have a repeat going on. So back in history, there was a studio in Memphis that was using this kind of slapback echo a lot, and this was the place where Elvis was recording, and his guitar player Scotty Moore was a big fan of that slapback echo. So there was a whole era of slapback sounds. I mean, today we know, of course, the music of Elvis Presley, but we also know, you know, Stray Cats and Brian Setzer. These people, they are inspired by this early tone of that tape echo. In 1953, there was an amp which was called the Echosonic amp, and this was a guitar amp with a tape echo built in. So this was kind of the ultimate product, because every other guitar amp was just making the sound louder, and this thing had this kind of space sound, this kind of slapback echo that was so important for the early rock and roll. And it gave the whole music a new dimension. There was kind of you know, something that, you know, imagine there would be no overdrive, and then suddenly there's somebody that has overdrive. And back in those days, in the 50s, this was kind of, the guitar was boring and dry, and then suddenly there was this kind of exciting new effect, the slapback delay. So this was important. And these amps, of course, were super, super expensive and limited. Chet Atkins and Scotty Moore, a few of those players. And then soon the Echo Rack, the Binson Echo Rack came out as a delay-only device, which, yeah, could be combined with any other amp for the guitar player or for vocals. You know, having an echo on the vocals was as important as on the guitar. So this was a killer thing. And look at how, you know, how complex such things were. I mean, tons of mechanics, motor, tube preamps, then the recording heads, mechanical stuff, electronics. I think these devices were super expensive back in the days, and they cost a fortune, probably more than guitars. Yeah, so this was the Benson Echo Rack, and this was actually also used by David Gilmour. So we have that little picture of me and David Gilmour. Yeah, of course he didn't have that with his gear back then. When I saw him, he had rack gear, a huge rack system, but a wet-dry-wet system and a special rack just for effects. And of course echoes is his thing. But I think he is using all kind of echoes, from the Vincent Echo Rack to modern digital delays and anything that is inspiring. That's the point of David Gilmour. He is a sound painter. He knows how to make the guitar sound exciting and use exciting sounds to paint landscapes and tones. So very important. Yeah, and then that same day I met Hank Marvin, also in Wembley Arena, and he was using the Watkins Copycat, and I read that he also was using a Meazzi Echomatic, Italian designed tape echo. Yeah, here we see this huge kind of thing. And yeah, when I did the sound check, I was actually quite happy with the Copycat to play Apache, but the quality faded away to almost gray and nothing so fast. Yeah, and I don't have a tape that's fresh. The one that comes with that came with that unit is even a lot more worn out. So yeah, unfortunately. But here's one thing I would like to show you. The Watkins Copycat was released in '58 already, and was in production for a very long time, and it went through different phases and different designs with transistor, and I think the early ones were tube driven versions. Let me show you the preamp of the whole thing, because we can now compare the preamp of the Roland versus the Watkins, and so this is so when listening to the feedback of the tape, it sounds so distorted and so harsh now. When the tape was fresh, it sounded a lot smoother. You know what? I get rid of the repeats and we just listen to the preamp. So get this off here. That's bypass. That's guitar into amp 1, clean with a little boost. So this is the sound of the guitar into amp 1. And now when I bring the Copycat in, there's a nice change which I like. Listen to this. Okay, it's a boost. Okay, this actually... Okay, this is the guitar bypass. And this is the Copycat. It adds some kind of clarity. You know? Bypass. Boost. Yeah. So, what do we learn from this? The preamp itself is already important. Let me do the same thing with the Roland. I have to get rid of the echo. The Roland is doing the opposite. It's kind of a lot darker. Bypass. The preamp of the space echo. Very different. Bypass. Roland. Bypass. Copycat. Yeah. So the preamp is super, super important. And of course, then we have the whole thing with the tape being worn out to the extent that I don't like it even more than check. So this is the Copycat. Okay, get rid of this. We have the Strymon Volante here, which gives me something similar in the digital format. And this is the one that I used to play the song actually. as you can hear, there is no preamp for the overall tone, but actually the delay sound is pretty authentic and it's consistent. So actually something you can trust in any situation. So see, the preamp doesn't change, but the echo is there. So, and this is what I dialed in. I have a great idea. You know what? I'll try the preamp of the Copycat on top of that. Maybe that does something good. Let's see. So just the Copycat. And then I bring in the Volante on top. I have to put it on top, which means I have to have another function to have, wait a minute, this is kind of A or B. I need 1 and 2, which could be, wait a minute, 5 is this one, so I need that switch out. There we go. Why isn't that logic here working? Is this loop? So, got it. Okay, sorry. I knew it is possible, but don't ask me which switch is for which loop. But now you can see both are blue, which means both are active, and I have so this is the Strymon Volante by itself, and this is with the extra, just the preamp of the Copycat. Aha! So to me, this is part of the magic. It shapes the tone in a certain way, and the echo is the echo. I mean, from this experience here, I have to say, with all these super vintage tape echoes, that's nothing to take on the road. I have a few museum pieces myself here, the Vox Echo and the Dynacord Echo Chord Super. And there is a real Echoplex here behind me. And there is the Hughes-Kettner Replex, which is kind of a rip-off of this one here. We can go into detail this episode or later in the next episode, because there's so many delays that I would like to try out here in the Academy of Tone and share whatever kind of noise is coming out with you guys. Okay, so important, there is a preamp that colors the tone, and important, there's a specific type of tape sound coming from tape echoes. So why tape echoes? I can go back and have some, you know, bucket bridge delays or digital delays. Let me show you what these sound like. Just you get a feel for where the whole thing, what's the magic about it, or if there's any magic. Okay, let's start bypass. I start with this C-mod Mets delay. Is it on? So this is a typical analog delay. What do we have? What's the... See, this is only a dark repeat. Compare it to 5. That's a tape echo sound. And this is an analog delay sound. Yeah. Has nothing to do with it. It's just another type of warm echo. Maybe great for overdrive sounds and things. Some people like it for slapbacks as well, but I'm... Sounds okay, but let's compare it to the Roland. Okay, let's get back. Let's get the echo back. Okay, no. This was the space echo versus the again. Even for the slapback, I prefer the tape modulation and weirdness that coming from it. It's kind of okay, but there's better. We could also compare this original RE-201 to a new digital version of that same unit. So Boss is having a digital go on doing a replica of that space echo with the RE2. Okay, so this is the original one. Okay, and then let's go in here and switch on to this. That's the RE2, and that's the 201. That's a lot warmer to my ears and has a different texture. I mean, it's like one. Okay, maybe we need more delay, which is echo. Ah, there's some reverb with it. There's the echo. And now the real deal. That's simply the sound that we know. To me, yeah, kind of okay. As long as I don't have an A-B comparison, but if I do have the A-B, yeah, and again, it's so much in the preamp, in the overall color of that unit. Just for fun, we can compare this to a standard DD5 digital delay. I put it in loop number 3, which sounds like... I mean, that's even more boring. Back to the RE2. And then into the DD5. The real deal. Yeah, okay. For fun, I have this Echo Man here, which is like a memory man. Again, a bucket bridge delay. Should be on loop number 4. RE2, C Met mod, DD5, totally clean, and then this one, the Echo Man. And now back to the space echo. Actually, it's not that far. Ah, sorry, 4. Wait a minute. Ah, this was still on the 5. Now, okay, 4 versus 8. Echo Man. And the Roland. Anyway, the real deal still inspires to play that style, even though I'm not good at that. I can feel that energy. Okay, wow, there's tons of things going on in the chat. Let me read a little bit so we get in sync here. Elliot, David Matai, I bought a used Replex and it's unbelievable. Yeah, okay, that's something I can subscribe to. Hard to beat the old for tone, hard to beat the new for convenience. Yeah, that seems to be the thing. I couldn't go on stage with the old ones. I don't know what's good price. Last winter I found 180 euros. Hey, 180 euros for a Replex, go for it. I mean, they are huge, but it's definitely worth the money. Let's see if Thomas can tell you a little bit about it. I'm very interested in a Replex, but I'm still hesitating because I don't know what costs new. They are out of production. Even when I was still with using Kettner, they had to discontinue it because the chip being used in that Replex was a Japanese chip that was kind of discontinued, and this chip was not available anymore. But with this unit, what you get is a tube preamp, which is, as we heard, something important. All these preamps sound different, and this is inspired by the Echoplex, but this Echoplex is not the first one, not the tube one. This was inspired by an EP1 or EP2, the tube version of the Echoplex. And as we heard, the preamp is part of the magic. And then the kind of simulation of tape sounds we get here in digital, which is also digital, but this unit is a mixture of digital and analog, and that's what I believe is still the most authentic, to get close to the good old real deal tape echoes. And by the way, that's the same way I will do it in the Amp X. So in the Amp X we will have the boost stage used as the preamp from a tape echo. So a tape echo in the Amp X will consist of like two parts. One is kind of the real echo, the kind of repeats and the wow and flutter of the tape and what's going on there, but in combination with a dedicated preamp. And this is coming from our boost section. So when you switch on a tape in the Amp X, tape echo in the Amp X, you will have kind of two things going on at the same time. That preamp and that kind of tape delay. Any other questions here? Let's see if Thomas blah blah blah. I use an EP booster always on to give it more character. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, das hat sich nicht so viel. Das hat nicht so viele Höhen. Yes, okay. Yeah, this one has more high end. This has less high end, and the Replex actually and the Echoplex has a thick mid range, I would call that, and the highs are not that much reduced. The digital reissue is too pristine. Yeah, I agree. To me, I'm missing some of that, well, filthy warmth. And the pristineness is, yeah, leads to a lack of character. But maybe you can combine this is something we can do with a pedal. like the Preamp Lightspeed, which is kind of like a booster that can have a touch of drive and has a frequency, well, you know, a tone control to get it less pristine. You know what? I get a patch cable and have a go. A patch cable is here. So what do we need? We have to get the output into the input of that too pristine cable. Oh man, this is very short. You know what? I get a longer for this one as well. Tiny patch cable. Okay. So send into the input, and then I get the output into the input of that. Let's listen what we can, if we can tweak it a bit. So first the RE-201, then we go back for the RE-2. Okay, and now I bring in that Lightspeed pedal. I darken it a bit. I give it a touch of drive. Bypass. So I think this is getting closer. Get the idea? So preamp is important. I use this kind of a, you know, quick attempt to have a preamp color. Just a touch reduced of treble and using a bit drive to make it dirty. That's loudness means volume here. That's just level, no tone. But you know, a touch of drive and a touch of reduced high end gets it a bit more in the zone. So that's a hint how to tweak your sound. Let me read some more of the comments here. The DD5, but the original sounds fantastic. The DD5 is the cleanest of the digital delays that I have here. My DD2 actually sounds a lot less pristine, even though it's digital, but it's like the very first generation of digital delays, which is more processed, like with the compounder and what is it? Compounder and decompound to get a better dynamic out of the digital delay line. And that makes sound, and that's why I love the DD2 and the early DD3s. They have that. Or the DD3, there's a reissue. I actually prefer those to the DD5s and later delays. I'm not familiar with the very latest ones, so don't quote me on those. But yeah, I stopped with 5 or 6. 7 might be killer again. I don't know. Anyway, what other questions do we have here? The original space echo leaves a big impression in space and time and on the floor too. Will there be a tape echo in Amp X? Of course. I can recommend the Catalin Bred Echo Rack. Yeah, the Catalin Bred Echo Rack, it is this kind of echo rack, Binsen style echo. And the Binsen, unfortunately I don't have one here, is using a drum not a tape. So that's supposed to be more reliable, because the RE-201 has a very long tape and it's kind of inside the cassette, so it doesn't wear out like the Copycat. The Copycat had 5 minutes and then it was gone, or 15, I don't know, sorry. It sounded pretty good when I got it working, and then it faded away way too fast. And the good old space echo here still sounds like an hour ago, which is a good sign. Japanese. Yeah, Japanese. They know what they're doing. Consistency, quality. Yeah. And there has been an RE-301 after this, which is Brian Setzer's favorite. It also features a chorus, because Roland was the company that invented the chorus, Roland Jazz Chorus. But that's definitely not used in Rockabilly. It was just in the device. I doubt that people really used it for Rockabilly. Maybe, back in the 80s, the Police kind of sounds. That's more 80s chorus. What is it? Will the Amp X have a bank switching feature for the 6 buttons, or will it only have 2 or 3 presets? Of course it will have a bank switching. There's like a double, where is it? Somewhere there is an Amp X. I have an Amp X, wait a minute. I can show you. Bing bidding. So the X will have something bank up, bank down when you press 2 foot switches. Yeah, and then there's tons of banks and tons of options. Okay, late, somebody is late. It's hard to replicate the pedals on Amp X. Is it hard to replicate the pedals on Amp X? Well, that's my job. It is hard, but the results will be pretty close. So, depending on the pedal, it can be hard or not so hard. But that's all my job. That's nothing for you to worry about. You just switch it on and you get it. Isn't that Mr. Morgan Lightspeed? Is that Mr. Morgan's favorite? Yeah, that's my pedal, and Rich likes that a lot. He loves that pedal because it's a subtle pedal that gives you that kind of little bit of compression and a little bit of dirt, and nothing too extreme, just like Rich as a person. Yeah. Expander, thanks. This was compounder, expander. Yeah, the signal in the early digital delays, and also in these kind of analog delays, has to be changed in dynamic with compounder and expander. DD2 is a classic. I totally agree. Thomas, can you tell a little bit about it? I'm very interested in the replex, but I'm still hesitating. I found one use for 500. Good question. Is 500 a good? I don't know if it's a good deal. The other day, I bought myself a Rotosphere again because mine disappeared. I have a lot of stuff that I buy and I give to other people, and then it kind of disappears. And So I had to re-buy it. And I actually bought it from Saarbrücken, hometown. The guy, he already put it in the mail and it was too late. Otherwise I would have picked it up. And I think it was super cheap. Maybe he thought it was broken, but it had just the wrong power supply. Because I have some of the original power supplies, no problem, works just fine. But back to the Replex, go on Reverb, check the prices, they vary. And yeah, that's what's going on there. Okay, wait a minute. 500 seems, I mean, it's worth the money. I would say 500, but you can probably get it for cheaper. But I am not the expert. I have 4 of those. If you wait for a year, I can sell you one of mine for maybe less. Okay, that's the question. Will blueprint of Replex be a puristic delay effect, or will it also be an improved reverb section? The reverb on the Replex, I would not even bother to do, because this was kind of a side effect of that chip. It had a reverb, so we used it on the Replex, but it's, to be honest, it's kind of a lousy sound, very lousy. So I don't consider this reverb good enough to trying to emulate it. I mean, sometimes there's trashy stuff that is having a quality of its own, but not this one. It's that bad. Wait a minute. Need my orange drink here. My voice is getting Frosch im Hals for the Germans. Mr. Blue says, what about preamp section? There are echo plexes that are coloring the tone in a bright or dark way. Yes. And that's what I'm all about. As you could hear, the Watkins Copycat versus the Space Echo versus that Echoplex. To me, this is kind of 50% of the magic. Maybe not 50, but a lot. And therefore, all these different preamps we will replicate and have those available. And the good news is they can also be used then standalone on the Amp X as kind of boosters or color pedals, like the Lightspeed, you know, subtle things. And in the early days, you know, here this Dynacord, the tube sound of this preamp is also killer. It's, yeah. And the Echo, the Vox one, has also a very, very unique sounding preamp. That's stuff that I would like to show you in the next episode. Go through different of these Echoes so we can compare more sounds. So we get, you know, more understanding of how different these units sound by, yeah, because I just have them there, but I need to make a setup for this. Today I had the switcher for the little pedals here, and the WEM and the Space Echo and Volante. In the next episode I will bring this up in the front so we can listen to the real Echoplex versus the Replex. That's next week. And then my Dynacord and the Vox, which is also something nice. I have to get the tape maintenance done here. I already started to do my maintenance job here, getting tape loops handmade, because this stuff is not available anymore for these units. So you have to get tape and that kind of special tape to glue it to glue the both ends together. And as you can see, if this little loop runs in circles like roll, 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 5 hours later, this is history. So therefore, I've done another one, and I've done another one. So I hope in next episode, with the loops, tape loops that I've done for my unit, we'll have more fun than with the WEM. The Copycat, yeah, it sounded really good for 15 minutes. I didn't do anything else. It's just, yeah, unbelievable how fast it, yeah, faded. Okay, Ricky King. For those international guys, Ricky King is kind of Hank Marvin from Germany. And he actually plays a white strat himself as well. And he came to one of my concerts. He knows me. He used to be huge here in Germany, being the German Hank Marvin, instrumental guitar player with all these kind of sounds. Yeah, Ricky would be a toller Gast. I think he lives in Mannheim, not too far from here, or at least this is where I met him 20 years ago. So I don't know where is he, if he's still around. Dialectic City, okay. Battle track. Hagi Brückner, Compender, Compressor, Compander. Compressor, Expander, yeah. Compender, yeah, these are all these dynamic circuitries. Compounder was a system for noise reduction, as far as I remember, maybe like Dolby, yeah. All these kind of systems were invented to kind of get more out of that limitations of tape or the early digital dynamic. Today, there is so much dynamic possible, but actually what we learned is less dynamic, sometimes with the right kind of saturation and compounding or whatnot, processing is the magic. So I'm not against these kind of tricks people have done in the past to try to enhance things. Maybe it wasn't that puristic anymore, but it had some mojo or character. So, Campana story, okay. David Matai, cool, that happy to wait another year if I can buy one of your replex. Yeah, wait for a year. I just need to keep one, maximum two. So I have two for sale next year. Ich habe noch ein paar Eimer und baue mein eigenes Echo und nenne es, wie man in den Wald ruft, so schüttet es aus Eimern. Okay, this is a German. Giffy Marauder. Very German humor. Thomas, ich habe noch genug C90 Kassetten, wenn du welche brauchst. Okay, this is a nice comment. Maybe you remember cassettes, this kind of little boxes where plastic and tape was inside. yeah, cassette recorder. These were the days in my youth when you put in a cassette and sometimes you had to jammed tape and stop or, you know, destroyed. Very, very, very strange to think about stuff like that these days, because back in the days everything was mechanics. You know, there was like a wheel and another wheel, and there was the tape spinning from one side to the other, and then you had to flip it over. And then imagine on such a small thing, there was all the information, and it was mechanically kind of sensitive. If my sister was having fun with it and playing with it as a kid, it was destroyed. So yeah, and these kind of technologies, they don't exist anymore. It's funny because on the one hand, I think it needed to be high precision mechanical stuff to even make that stuff work. And these were probably the golden days of mechanics. When you look at such a machine here, with all these springs and capstans and wow, I mean, this is engineering at its best when it comes to mechanical stuff. But you know, today we have a micro control, we have a chip, and that's doing stuff like that. The question is it really capturing all of the mojo, or maybe not? And this is what I have in mind when I will do my tape delays on the Amp X, that I capture a bit more of the mojo. I'm not saying, yeah, I'm pretty impressed about the Strymon. Yeah, let's hear. But, oops. Okay. Let's go back for Strymon is 5. I think it's great, but there's still something that I'm not getting from the digital emulations. Sorry, I tried also the El Capistan from Strymon, which emulates the tube preamp, and it's a modeled tube preamp. I know exactly what they want to do. They have this kind of tube warmth and all that stuff, but something analog is a different feel to me. Anyway, this is something to be proven in the future, but I'm on a mission to do that. Okay, so that's the Space Echo, and that's the Strymon. And now I go for the RE-2 with the light speed. And for me, this sounds actually a bit more real. It opens a dimension, and this is in front of the echo, which doesn't mean, or which is changing the overall tone and actually keeps the echo unprocessed. So, but this is what a preamp does, and that's so important, and it's not in the other units. Sorry, guys. And therefore, it's kind of my philosophy. It needs to be analog, as certain things are better analog. And then on top, you come with the digital stuff. And then if you have the digital stuff processed analog again, then you get very, very close. And that's what I'll do in the Amp X. Okay, any more comments here? Thomas, can you recommend a proper guitar cable? Yeah, I can. There's several options. What is a proper guitar cable? For the video live stream, I have these cables, and this should be, but isn't, a silent plug. That makes usually sense, but as you can see, it's not silent. Where is my proper? Ah, here we have a proper guitar cable. That's the same thing, hopefully proper. So, what is a proper guitar cable? Wait a minute, this goes, okay. So that's the same thing, hopefully doing the job. Let me show you. I'm here. So, so silent plug is a good thing when you have to switch guitars, okay? But as you could see, they can also break, which happened to the other plug. So this one is a Klotz guitar cable. The sound-wise, oh wait a minute, I don't have them here. I have them in the other room. I have to do an episode about the guitar cables again. I think I've done one at the very beginning of Academy of Tone. At this point, when it comes to the Klotz cables, there is one Joe Bonamassa 6 meters or something. I like that cable for the sound. Then there is a cable by Flex, which I like a lot. That's my favorite cable when it comes to sound for Stratocasters. It's supposed to be very long lasting, but I managed to kill it every year because it's kind of a little stiff and it breaks on the jacks. So, and there's another one cable which I actually like too, which is a Sommer cable. Sommer, what's the name here? AWG19, whatever that means. Well, and there's other manufacturers that have also great cables. For me, cables have a huge influence on tone. So you can use a cable to tweak your sound and kind of adjust things in the way to max it towards your tone. For instance, if your guitar is a little bit too bright, you can use a cable that has a bit more capacitance and makes the whole guitar less shrill. Or if your guitar is a little bit dull, you can have a cable that gets it a touch more alive. So it's kind of one little parameter that you can use to tweak your system. System meaning the guitar and the amp input. That's a system, because the pickup and the cable and the input impedance is a system. There's a lot of things going on, so it's worth to compare different cables. Last week Thomas recommended the Klotz Joe Bonamassa 6-meter cable. Yeah, that's the one. That's what I'm recently have on my, with me and my pedalboard when I play live. And I like the angled plug for the wah-wah. So, you know, it's the standard plugs, like the long ones here. When I plug this into the wah-wah, somebody knocks the cable and then my wah-wah gets off the board. It's not fun. And the angled one is kind of here, so not so dangerous to get mechanical stress to the wah-wah. I have a built-in reverb in my Strat. Huh? Reverb? The springs do sound certain tones, and I fixed one half with a Q-tip. Well, there is a thing about reverb on Strats. It's like these springs are reverb. So every time you play those, you actually have also a little bit of that resonance from those springs coming through. You can hear that when you have super, super high gain sounds. And then sometimes if you need to be quieter, some people put like like toilet paper behind the springs just to dampen those springs. Otherwise you get super noisy. Let me show you what I mean. If I go here and make nice, too many delays in the loop. Let's get this stuff out of here and I go straight with the guitar into here. So, ouch. That's so there's an extra reverb coming from the springs from your Strat. But hey, this is how a Strat sounds, and that's part of the tone. If you want to be authentic, yeah, but you can kill it with some toilet paper if you want to. American wire gauge. Describe the thickness of cable. Okay, this was the thing with the summer cable here. I'm also curious about Thomas' thoughts on that Jim Lil video. Jim Lil video. What was it? Is this the video? Wait a minute. Where's my mobile phone? I'm not sure which was. Sounds familiar. Now you need a tele. I have a tele. Ha! There it is. Ta-da! There's no springs on a tele. There's no reverb with a tele. This is why a solid piece of wood and a solid guitar, solid body as can be. Wait a minute. What is the thing? Jim Lil video. Let me check it out. Ding ding. Sounds familiar. Huh? Yeah. I remember. I watched this. Is where comes the tone in the guitar amp, and this guy has he started from the typical cliches. Oh, it's the whatever 6L6 and the 6V6 or the EL30, and then in the end he found out it's basically EQ. It's kind of more the EQ section of an amp, and that's kind of 80%, and then it's kind of overdrive. So yeah, I saw that video, and I kind of that's what I know myself for ages, of course. But what I like about it, that somebody actually tried to get through all the cliche things and kind of question stuff, approve stuff, and finding out what is the reality. And in the end, this is what I always think is, there's so much blah blah about things that make 1% difference, and people forget about things that make 10% or even 50% difference, and they don't even think about that. But how can they know? Because they've never tried this kind of experiments. So I can recommend to watch this Jim Little video, because it will open your mind to a new way of thinking, and not repeating, I hear the EL84s, and only an EL84 can sound like a blah blah blah, and only blah blah blah. You know, because certain amps use that kind of tube, for instance, and then you believe the tube does everything, but it's not the case. Of course the tube has its little character and it's important, but it's maybe 2%. And another 28% is something else that you don't even think about it. So watch that video. It is worth watching. So that's my comment on this one. The Hendrix sound, that's probably the thing with the springs. About where an amp, I don't get it. Amp's tone comes from. Okay. Yeah, this is where the guys are talking about this video where the tone from amps come from. I like the video because you can see so many videos that repeat beliefs that are old, and only a blah 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 is the only way to get this, which is not the case. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter if you have a 6L6 tube, or if you have an EL84 tube, or an EL34 tube, or KT66 tube, whatever. But it's a certain percentage, and it's not the tube by itself, it's what that stage is doing. It is what the tube and the transformer and the phase tube, splitter tube are doing, which is the whole amplifier section. There's things, there is more than just that tube. You believe, the 6L6 is the sound of blah blah blah. It's way less than you think. This is why you should watch this video. Thanks for bringing this up. An AX7 or my favorite 82nd, I don't know what the amp's faceplate says, nor does it care. It does what it does. Yes, of course it does what it does. And now we are talking tubes, 12AX7 or 12AT7. Well, the amplification rate is totally different. The AT7 is less hot, and therefore it changes a lot. And just a few dBs less change the whole circuitry and the whole behavior and the whole breakup characteristics. And therefore it's fun to change a tube on a tube amp, and sometimes replace it with a different type, from an AX7 to an AT7, or even if you have several different AX7s, because they have high tolerance, you try 5 different ones and you find some that are boring and some that are more exciting to what you want. So I have a huge collection of tubes because that's what I've done in the past. Kind of maxing out components or tones with components. It's a percent here and a percent there and another percent there, and it adds up, and that's where we get some magic. But these days I'm more interested in what is this circuitry with this specific tube doing, creating, and then I try to get the same thing with modern technology that I can replicate in an amp with no tolerance. I mean, if you know our amp 1, you can, if it's the same model like a Mercury or Iridium, there is no difference, or that little difference. It's so little, and the variations you get with tube amps, the tolerance of the components are so much more critical, because it is what it is. The tubes are, they have a certain tolerance, and then these days they are even harder to find, and therefore you have to live with what you get, and then you have to go through different tubes and max it out for yourself. But that's the old school way. I've been there, I love it, and I've modded or maxed out my amps in those respects. But for BluGuitar and our amps, I'm all about analyzing what's happening there and then get it into a stable design that can be replicated thousands of times with like no audible difference or no difference in feel. This is what my aim is. So, oops, something fell off the shelf. It wasn't my glass anyway, so just some ugly noise. Last questions here. Poo Ninja, okay, we had this question. He was similar video about concept of Tonewood in guitars. Yeah, but this video about strings and Tonewood, I disagree on this video. Why? Let's put it that way. Electromagnetic pickups, strings and pickups only without any woods. Yeah, you can hear that this is kind of 50% of the thing. But on the other hand, I have the same pickups with the same strings in different guitars, and they sound so much different. That's what I can bring to the party, and I can prove it. I can prove it in blindfold tests and whatnot. And so, yeah, it's a shocking video with the guitars, but it is not that simple. So, yeah, that's my comment to this video. Giffy Morona, Thomas, by the way, my pick technique problem you explained to me at Kirstein has been caused mostly by my old plug at home. Ah, okay, now I know the guy I'm reading the comments of. It was built an egg tooth from playing very long. La 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 la, cause okay, yeah, this guy had a lot of peak from the, well, wait a minute, where are we? Because, you know, it's kind of digging in hard, having not so much tone, and this was his picking technique. So what I tried to tell him is like, when you hit in a different way, you get more tone. I mean, this amount of pressure kind of isn't helping. So see, I just play a little lighter and hold the pick slightly different, and the tone is fuller versus like this is hitting harder. So with our picking technique, we can have a lot of influence on the tone. So this is yeah, the comment to this question. Okay, pre-distortion EQ section on Amp X. Will there be a pre-distortion EQ section on Amp X? Of course. Pre-distortion. There is, well, first there is the amp section, and in front of the amp section there is a boost section where you can have boost pedals, and some of them they have EQ functions which you can use as a pre-EQ. Of course. So that's a simple thing, and there's a overdrive pedal even in front of the overdriven channels, so this can also add EQ and distortion if needed. But I would go for the boost section and then have a simple boost that does the pre-EQ. That's part of the Amp X. Okay. Thanks, Thomas. That's my okay, this guy changed the next. Dual EQ possible with Amp X pre and post? Yes, it's possible. MBB, me and my friends do some comparisons as well. Our result, the most important, is a good neck, and there is even a difference, a quarter zone or not. Okay, now these guys talk about guitars, and I totally agree. The neck, if the neck is kind of soft, you can have any body and it will not be a great guitar. If the neck is a really solid, stiff neck, like a baseball bat, then that's a good starting point. And then you combine it with a body that has the right resonance for that neck, and you get a great guitar. So I do agree, the neck is so important, and the way it's cut from the tree is also important. I'm not going into these details. There are people that have more knowledge about that, but I do agree because, yeah, you can see the rings and blah, blah, blah. But that's what I found out. And this is in contrast to the video of the guy that just had the strings with a pickup telling the world like the wood doesn't matter at all. The wood does matter. That's my belief and my experience. Okay, MBB, what I did, swapped the fat neck of an Eric Johnson Strat with a scallop neck of a Malmsteen Strat. The difference was huge. Of course, the Eric Johnson sounded dull and great of a sudden. See, some people believe that the fatter the neck, the better the tone. It's not true. There is something about thick, fat wood, and there is something about thinner wood. Especially this guitar has a pretty thin headstock. And this headstock makes that guitar more resonant than a big fat one. The quality of that guitar comes from, I would say, the stiffness of the wood. It's so old, it's been played so much, and this guitar doesn't. I'm really pushing hard. See? Nothing moves. Any new guitar I can get out of tune easily. And that's the quality of that neck and that guitar. And it's actually not too thick. It's actually rather thin. So there is nothing wrong about thinner things if they are kind of stable and stiff. That's my opinion. Hi Thomas, when are you playing the Netherlands? Hopefully next year. Yeah, it's on my wish list. Tone is in the fingers. Yeah, that's true, but tone comes from a lot of places. One is, of course, the fingers. The other one is in the right hand, how to pick, or if you use the fingers here or the plectrum. And the rest is tone starts in your head. If you have a concept of how you would sound, you know how to plug and how to move the fingers. Some people have such a beautiful concept of tone, and that's why they sound so beautiful. It's like, yeah, it starts with a vision. Stefan, my body build, change the normal neck in the custom shot. Yeah, okay, now it's going next. What echo did Brian May use on Brighton Rock? Actually, I'm not sure, but I think echo plexus in the early days. Anyone knows? Please put it in the comments. I know that the Echoplex has this kind of movable head, and you can get kind of a long delay with a tape echo. And Brighton Rock, what was this, late 70s? And he must have two of those delays. You know, there was like do-do-do, do-do-do, lo-do-do. So I think he had 800 milliseconds and another 800 milliseconds. And I think we can find out in the next episode when I have a deeper dive on the Echoplex, which is probably 800 milliseconds. And that could give the answer. I'll check that out for next week. Could be an Echoplex. If somebody knows already, please let us know now. Here, necks again, Stefan Mandl. No wonder the old necks alone are going for ridiculous prices, yes. But hey, these prices, I don't know, I have seen necks for, I don't know, $3,000-4,000. Crazy. I don't know. Okay, guys, I think this was my contribution to you guys and some starting point on delays. We'll have more next week. And if you do have some specific questions, let me know and I can try to answer those next week or have a look into those topics. As I found the echo thing quite interesting, and it's great to have all of these here. Yeah, and compare them all. Somebody wants to tequila echoes next week. Thanks for letting me know. If I can get hold of one, I will try. I will ask my friend Frank Post, Looper's Paradise. He has Keeley pedals usually. If he has one, I'll have that next week. If you have anything else, put it in the comments or write at youtube@bluguitar.com, and I'll do my best to get the stuff for next week. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Cheers, see you next week. Au revoir.